Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/AskReddit by Planet Reddit. What's the most significant you just ducked with the wrong person moment you've witnessed or experienced? Stopped in Reno overnight while moving across the country. Had everything I own in a little beater I bought for the trip. All night I'm keeping an eye on the parking lot. There is a cop car in the lot. Sure enough, late that night I see a shady guy slowly walking along the line of parked cars, scoping them out. To my surprise, he decides the cop car is the one he wants to break into. So he takes off his shirt, wraps it around his arm, and starts hitting the window with his forearm. I call the front desk and let them know what's going on. Lady says she's calling the cops. I tell her it's a cop car and ask if there is a cop staying in the hotel. She says she'll check. About 30 seconds later, a very angry man in his boxers thunders out of his room and tackles the dude. He ducked with the wrong person. Worst criminal of all time. Ain't no car window you're gonna break with your forearm. There's at least a dozen other ways to get in that are easier and more obvious. Option 1. Rock. My father recently told me this story about this Ashatu he works with driving trucks for different distributors. They have no smoking area since food production's etc, but this a-hole decided to smoke there anyway, putting his butts out in a styrofoam cup. Anyway, after a while his truck was loaded and decided to just throw the cup out the window after getting in his truck when a man walked past and asks him calmly to pick the cup up and put it in the bin. To which this intellectual giant of a driver says, if it's so important, why don't you put it in the bin before driving off? Without making much of a reaction, he picked it up, walked to the bin, then makes his way back inside. When my father gets back to the main truck depot, he sees this driver getting yelled at by his boss. Turns out there was a conference being held with some overseas members of the company and the CEO. The CEO of which was told to pick up the cup. They instantly barred the driver from the site and all associated sites, and my father's boss had to jump through hoops to not lose the contract renewal. I can't imagine the level of ecstasy that CEO would have felt during the whole situation, knowing that this prick doesn't know who he is. My old man used to be the plant manager of a small refinery in Ohio. He had a policy of management by stealth, wherein he would put on old coveralls and a hard hat without his name on it and go walk around looking at stuff. One day, he saw a mechanic standing on the back of another mechanic, tightening bolts on an exchanger. When he told the man to get down, the reply was something along the lines of, "No. Duck off." When Ole Dad insisted, the guy asked, "Just who the hell are you?" Dad said, "You really don't want to know. Just get down." The guy looked at him, got the hint, and sheepishly got down. When I was a senior in high school, I was at some house party. There was this chick named Rachel there, a notoriously crazy bitch who was known for causing trouble anywhere she went. She was also a pretty big girl, maybe 5'9", broad shoulders. Anyway, out of nowhere she just starts screaming at another girl, Sarah, a shorter, skinny thing, who was seriously on the other side of the room doing absolutely nothing. Rachel gets up in her face, starts cursing her out, pushing her multiple times, obviously just trying to start shit for the hell of it. Rachel finally decides to throw a punch, and I shit you not, like a flash of light, Sarah just launches at Rachel, starts beating the living shit out of her face, knocks her on her ass and strongholds Rachel's hair and starts slamming her skull on the brick fireplace in the house. I think she must have knocked Rachel out for a minute, because Sarah decided she was done and just stood up and walked away. Turns out Sarah's older sister was a competitive female boxer and showed her a thing or two about fighting. Definitely the best girl fight I've ever seen. Every Rachel I've ever met has been batshit crazy. Some might call that Rachel profiling, but it's a fact. Yowta be link. There's this old miserly looking man with a nickel who seems to just ride the subway all day. The nickel man only seems to have one purpose in his life. He sticks his hand out with a nickel on his palm, and he just points it at you. It's like he's asking you to look at his plain old nickel. He's like a reverse panhandler. One night, I was coming home drunk and saw the nickel guy. He was doing his usual rounds, and he came to me. He stuck out his hand, and like usual you just let him be. But I was tipsy and I pulled the nickel out of his hand. Within seconds, he went from normal nickel guy to ducking crazy rip your face off yelling angry gorilla man. Till I put it back. And he became normal nickel guy again. I was mortified. Sometimes I imagine weird people I see in public actually have some really important thing they're doing. But no one understands it. Like nickel guy is actually trying to find some time traveler that gave him that nickel and told him to meet the traveler on that train in the future. And now the guy just rides it every day, hoping that eventually he'll show it to the right person who will finally explain what it all means. Holy shit. John calmly talked at him. Good. Stop crying. You look like a beach. Oh fuck. Shot Ron in the face with the shotgun. WTF man. I live in front of a hospital parking lot. Some guy in an expensive car cut in line. A lady in a van was super pissed off and kept honking. He got out to calm her down. She got out, ripped off her wig and started screaming and pointing at the cancer center entrance. He looked like he wet himself and got back in his car. Still stayed where he cut in line though. A lady in a van was super pissed off and kept honking. Sounds like my sister. She got out, ripped off her wig and started screaming and pointing at the cancer center entrance. Never mind. Sounds like my aunt. My father and his brother, who are both 6 feet 6 inches, were riding in my uncle's tiny little Chevette and a guy road raged and chased them into a parking lot. You could almost see the guy fill his pants when they unfolded themselves out of the car. Do you find something comical about my appearance when I'm driving my automobile? This was the largest automobile I could afford. 2 drunk guys were bugging this local busker, trying to get him to fight them, saying all sorts of racist stuff. The busker was black. The busker just lost it. Obviously he had to deal with a ton of drunk a-holes. He picked up his guitar and hit one of the drunk guys across the face with it. I called the police when I saw it, and later got called in to give evidence against the drunk guys, who got arrested, saying that they started it. Was his guitar okay? D. Haha. Yeah. It was an electric guitar. And it must have been made out of something magic. Because he was back on the street the next day busking. People love him in this city. He was even in a documentary about our city. He would be sorely missed if his guitar got ducked up. Was covering a hockey game as a sports reporter when I saw the single best retaliation of my life. In my state, if you're female and you want to play hockey with the boys, you can. Typically, the serious girl hockey players will play in these leagues because the girls only hockey leagues are shit. There was this girl named Alex who I covered since she was a freshman and she was really good. Played since she was a kid. Was on some really good travel teams. Competed in national camps. Got a college scholarship for the sport and played 4 years in college. Etc. Anyway, her junior year, I'm covering an away game at this shitty arena and her school is playing one of its rivals, so I know it's going to be a chippy game. It did not disappoint. This big tough boy notices she's a girl, or played against her before, and spends the first 2 periods basically trying to intimidate her by checking her hard into the boards whenever she has the puck and generally doing all the things you know someone is doing to antagonize you. Now, I've seen this girl play and I know she isn't going to tolerate that, so I just wait for the moment she snaps. It comes in the 3rd period. She doesn't miss a beat though. Calmly, I watch her pick herself up and a-hole hockey player must have said something to cause her to snap because she takes her helmet off and goes his way. At this point, I can tell her thinks he's going to dismiss this sweet little girl and tell her to play with dolls or something, but he never gets the chance. She cold cokes him right in the jaw and starts beating the piss out of him. It was absolutely amazing. He must have had maybe 50 pounds on her, but she didn't care and she beat his ass handily. And because the refs were on the other side of the ice, it took a little bit of time to break them up. She got ejected. He got ejected, but he sulked out of the arena knowing full well he got his ass kicked by a girl. It was phenomenal. 2 kids, about 11 years old, were bullying this 9-year-old kid by instigating their little sister to go hit and kick him, with the threat that they would beat him with a hockey stick if he retaliated. The poor 9-year-old pleaded with them to stop. But when they wouldn't, he charged the kid with the hockey stick, took it from him, chased them off, threw the stick over the fence and continued to saunter home. I witnessed this from about 50 feet away at age 13. It took place in about a minute, and while I was contemplating a way to help the kid out, he just took matters into his own hands like a G. That little kid was not the one to duck with. When I was about 10 or so, I shot a cricket with a Nerf gun from a prone position and it dodged it, then jumped at me, and I got up in panic so fast. The gun flung from my hand into the kitchen, breaking a few glasses. Never ducked with crickets again. Breaking a few glasses. Glasses? Was this inside? I'm just imagining some kid shooting with their Nerf gun at crickets that got inside. Ah. Manitoba. Yes. Inside. Just one cricket, haha. I was working in a sketchy part of Albuquerque when I realized a guy was following me through the parking lot. Started walking faster, so did he. I knew I wasn't going to get into my car before he reached me, so I took the knife out of my purse and turned around and shoved it in his face and yelled, "I'm from Wisconsin, I can gut idea." Dude took off and I got in my car shaking. Edit. Row. Thanks for the gold thrice over. For those asking, it was in the Four Hills. I worked at that movie theater that closed down. And I was 21 at the time and didn't know what else to do. So I pulled the one weapon I had and shouted the first thing that came to mind, and yes, I can gut a deer. No, I didn't stab him in the face, I pointed it in his face. Was that the smartest thing to do? No. But yeah, no. Instinct and stuff. I'm just glad it wasn't actually a gang member, or I'd most likely be dead. I don't know you. That's my purse. Damn it. Bobby. I lost it at a Subway a while back. This story isn't about me losing it at a person myself. But I found someone who could and did. The Subway I go to is inside a skating rink, and on this day it was flooded with newly pubescent boys thinking that treating people like absolute horseshit is how you act like a macho man. One girl behind the counter was neat as, and the other woman was trying to hold her own ground against a bunch of 13-year-olds. It was you ducking beach. I didn't ducking ask for mayo. Are you blind? For duck's sake. That's not toasted enough. When I get a job, I'm gonna be making more than you. Just a taste of some of what I heard. So I went out to the lobby of the skating rink. Found a woman nearby and asked her if she was with the boys in Subway. Which she was, and then I told her to follow me. The look on the boys' faces when she let out her angered screech after listening to them was friggin' priceless. She made the boys pay for their own food. One boy didn't get to finish making his sandwich. Wrap it up how it is and he'll pay for it. And from what I gathered, she practically dragged them out if there was the boys who weren't hers. She was going to speak to their parents, followed by strong protests, so she told them to pack their crap, as she was taking them home early. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. I've made some edits to better the grammar. This is why you don't Reddit when you're tired. Mom anger is my favorite kind of karmic retribution. It's like the fire of hell come with the wrath of God. Uber driver refuses ride to a blind man with a guide dog, who happens to be the former Disability Discrimination Commissioner. That's obviously ducked up. But I was just curious. Do Uber drivers have to allow animals since it's their car? In Australia, they are required to take guide dogs. When I played hockey, I got kicked out of a game early, so I had to watch it from the stands. A guy from the other team was chasing one of my teammates around the ice, slashing him, trying to get him to fight. Finally my buddy dropped his gloves and proceeded to give this dude a man-sized shit kicking. A teammate went on to become an enforcer in the NHL. I don't watch hockey, but that's pretty duckin' awesome. You should take a peek, it's playoffs right now, it's the most exciting hockey you can watch. After drinking and partying in the honch outside our base in Japan, my friend and I went to the on-base taxi stand to go back to the barracks. We hail and start climbing into the first open cab we see. This drunken white guy was running for it, but we beat him to it. We didn't see him. Anyway, he's furious and starts yelling at us. Two girls. One Latina. The other black. You stupid ducking nigger. And then a group of about 6 black sailors come around the corner to the stand. I don't know how it happened. Maybe Paul Mooney summoned them. Anyway, white guy changes his mind and ends up running, to the ships. A fight didn't break out though. Edit. My first ever Reddit gold. Thank you. D. Maybe Paul Mooney summoned them. Best thing I've read all day. Thank you. If only that happened every time there was an incident like that. Kind of like if you say Bloody Mary 3 times. You get what you have coming to you. Instead in this case it's 6 sailors. Why hasn't the store banned this guy already before the incident? We tried refusing him service, asking him to leave, etc. He acted like he didn't understand what we were saying. We eventually started calling the police department when we saw him coming. But he'd always leave before the officer got there. I really don't think he was as crazy as he pretended to be. We tried tricking him a few times. Tried to get him to stay until the police got there but he would hurry off. I think he knew what was up. I work at a restaurant and 4 punks decided to dine and ditch. They ran out and got away but luckily I overheard one of their names while they were eating. Long story short I tracked him down on Twitter and the direct messages went like this. Me. Haha. Nice try. We know who you are. You owe $40. Bring the money or we are reporting you to the police and your school. Insert HS name. You have until Sunday night. 1 minute later. Punk. I'm terribly sorry for this horrible incident. Punk. I'm bringing the money right now punk. I'm terribly sorry it wasn't even my idea. I had no choice but to run also or else I'm in trouble. Punk. We left a bag of money. 15 minutes after I sent the message. A guy literally opened the front door and threw a Ziploc bag full of $40 of cash and change into the restaurant and ran away. Idiots. Edit. Typo. Probably legitimately wasn't his idea. Kinda sounds like he took one for the team. Sounds like you got the responsible one's name. My favorite response to this question. Thanks for sharing. Colon. Yes. Malicious compliance. Technicality revenge. So delicious. In high school between classes a couple of the defensive backs on our football team thought it would be funny to run full speed into the open doors to knock over the students that were leaving the classrooms. After seeing this happen a few days in a row the football team's starting defensive tackle, decided to post up behind the door. After I felt the thump of my fellow teammate hit the door, I emerged from behind the door to find him laying on the ground. I reached out a hand and helped him to his feet. Then I told him, hey man, you gotta watch where you're going. There's a door there. What does it mean to post behind the door? Basically, the douche players would plow through a door right as class let out. Cool guy stood behind the door and pushed his weight against it so when douche players tried to run through to knock people over, they ran into a door reinforced by another person's body. Basically ran into a wall. I watched a guy try to steal a girl's purse. He ran past her, grabbed onto the strap, and tried to yank it off her arm. She was a lot stronger than he'd anticipated, because she pulled the bag back and sent him sprawling onto the sidewalk. She then kicked the shit out of him, screaming at him the whole time. As this took place in Montreal, people just watched her beat him up and clapped politely when she was done. She curtsied to the crowd, spat on him, and walked off. Having spent a fair amount of time in Montreal, I can absolutely picture this happening and no one being surprised. Don't duck with crazy French Canadians. French people yelling in French is cute. Canadians yelling in French is terrifying. That's awesome. Love the polite clapping, oh you Canadians, and the curtsy. The one and only time I have had a massive win over someone falls into this category. I was once engaged to the Vice Consul of America from Brazil. I was flying around on holiday and coming back to America where we were living. I was on a working visa, but had recently quit my job as we were about to move. She was being reposted and so I decided to go on holiday for a few weeks, and had come in and out of the US several times. After being in a plane returning from Spain, I was dressed in an old pair of shorts, t-shirt, odd socks and hadn't slept. I looked and felt like shit. That's our guy immediately flags me over and starts grilling me over my visa, travel history, etc. He picked up that I had resigned from my job and formed the opinion that I was trying to sneak back into the States, even though as an Australian passport holder I can come into and out of the States pretty much at will. He made me miss my plane and took me into one of the little rooms With the world's biggest shit-eating grin, he told me I was not going to be allowed back into the States. I tried to reason with him, explaining all my housing stuff, bank accounts etc were there, and that all my paperwork was in order etc. But he was a complete bastard and was having none of it. So I casually dropped my fiancee's name and her position. He got a little worried. He asked me for some details about her, which I gave. He walked out of the room, his shit-eating grin definitely gone. He came back with a folder of photos and asked me to pick her out, as they keep on file photos of diplomatic personnel etc. When I passed all his tests, he turned white. For once in my life I had the power over this little shitbird. And it would not have been a hard thing to place a call to my girlfriend and have this prick's job, and he knew it. All my documentation was in order and he was just being a first-class dunt. Managers were called. Apologies were made. Tickets to the first-class waiting lounge were arranged. And new flights were booked free of charge. I had a similar situation. But on the other side, I was a Peace Corps volunteer serving overseas and was about to finish my 2 years and go home. I needed a fiancé visa for my current hubby. The consul officer at the American embassy was a real jerk and would not give us one or help us get one and told us to get lost. I am from Massachusetts and decided to call my senators, one being John Kerry, the other being Ted Kennedy. Kerry's office did nothing for us. But the last line's office took my call right away. A very nice man told me to go back to the consul the next day and things would be taken care of. I walked in, got sent to the front of the line. The consul was clearly furious, but everything was taken care of. Until he said that he was not exactly sure when our appointment would be at a doctor's office in another country that was out of his hands. It was not out of Teddy's. Our appointment went from sometime in the next 30 days to next Thursday at 3 PM or something similar. I am not sure what happened, but phone calls were made. Might have helped that his brother created the Peace Corps. Drunk high as duck guy on the bus kept saying really rude things about this woman. Her husband right next to her. Short white guy gets in this guy's face. Ducked up guy gets up to hit the white dude. White dude socked him in the stomach and then punched him in the face. Drunk, he got knocked out and his mouth was super bloody. Someone call an Amber. Lance. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.